Hello and welcome back to Blow Up the Team. Jeremy here today with Matt.
Hello, hello.
If I had told you all those weeks ago when we first started that one of the last videos that we did was going to be remaking one of the very first video that I did, would you expect to be here right now?
I mean, you've been talking about it since like a week after you posted it, so yes.
Valid argument. I can tell you when I first made the video, I had no intentions of coming back. I can tell you that.
Well, yeah.
This series has taken on such a life of its own since we kind of started all those weeks ago that I kind of feel like I don't have much of a choice but to go back. Um, the first few videos really, but especially the Arizona Cardinals were kind of just the first time that we made a run through was we'll say very different criteria for what I was putting in the videos, what I was kind of researching, what I was preparing, stuff like that. So, and even just what I was talking about. So I think it made a lot of sense for us to come back and kind of revisit it. I think I'm literally going to title this 2.0 because it's a standalone video. You don't have to watch the other one to kind of understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to go through and explain it all again. I think without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the Arizona Cardinals and their 2020 NFL draft. Let's start off by talking a little bit about their 2019 season. They were 5-10-1 last season. Um, and quite frankly, it was kind of a weird season. There were some. Kyler Murray obviously is one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league. It was his first time seeing NFL action. He's trying to get up to speed, see what everything whatever.
Turncoat, traitor, traitor,
Huh?
traitor,
What?
traitor, traitor.
Huh?
Should go to the MLB.
Oh my God, this kid. All right. Anyways, it's his first time getting to see NFL action, trying to get up to speed. Um, and he had some flashes last year. He had some flashes where he looked very very solid and looked like he has a lot of potential. But he's obviously a rookie, and rookies make rookie mistakes. Um, yeah, the offense was kind of as you would expect with the kind of. I mean, let's be honest. The team hasn't been particularly good for a few years now. And it was kind of now they've just got a rookie quarterback at the helm, so they had their moments. They were 21st in yards per game, 24th in passing yards, 10th in rushing yards, and 17th in points per game. I would expect there to be definitely a different kind of flow for the offenses next season, because most notably the David Johnson trade, which is this particular trade is I would say probably 75% of the reason we're back. Um, last time we went through this video, I was not talking about the off season or what their last season was really at all. I was purely looking at the draft, and I got it wasn't appreciated the fact that I did not bring up this trade. So um, let's get the streamers coming down for the rafters on this one. Let's get like any kind of intense music that you need. Um, they traded David Johnson and a second round pick and a 2021 fourth round pick for DeAndre Hopkins and a 2020 fourth round pick from the Houston Texans. Obviously, this was a headlining trade, which is half the reason why I felt like I didn't need to bring it up last time. But regardless, there's enough about last time. David Johnson has kind of been in a weird spot. He had that like a couple good seasons, and he's been injured. He's been trying to figure out what his kind of next steps are, trying to get back from injury, get back to who he used to be. Um, while DeAndre Hopkins is at the bare minimum a top three wide receiver in the league, many would argue the best, and there's definitely a solid argument there. Um, so definitely very good, and they were able to offload David Johnson's contract, which again because of him struggling to stay healthy, has been a little bit cumbersome over the years. Now, um, I don't. I think this is definitely going to be enough to kind of move this offense from kind of the rushing heavy that it was back over to more kind of air heavy attack, which I mean also makes a lot of sense when you got a young quarterback like that. You want to kind of as he gets more into the league, you want to give him some room to kind of grow and give him more chances with the ball in his hands. Um, yeah, I think that adding DeAndre Hopkins is definitely huge for him. I had mentioned in the other, and I'm going to mention it now. I did mention that I feel like they could have used a bigger bodied wide receiver kind of earlier in the draft, and I stand by that. And for this specific reason, if you look at the archetype that's kind of in place with DeAndre Hopkins and where he was successful in Houston, Will he was playing opposite Will Fuller, who's a deep threat in and of himself. Kind of was able to spread the field. It stopped the defense from being able to load up all on DeAndre Hopkins. And Larry Fitzgerald at this point in his career is kind of getting on in years. I don't know that he's going to be able to be that option anymore for them. I think that he's going to be kind of I don't know. It's going to depend on how it is. Obviously, when a guy starts to get up in age, it's kind of hard to predict what he's going to be able to do from season to season. So ideally, he continues to produce the same way he has been for years and still continue to be a solid option for them. But I don't think that he's enough to really draw coverage away from DeAndre Hopkins at the moment. And then they still have Christian Kirk, who I kind of view more as a solid slot option. And so I really feel like that bigger body guy that they could throw opposite DeAndre Hopkins and really force them to have run two deep safeties, stop from loading up on DeAndre Hopkins' side of the field. Um, I personally think that that would have been beneficial for them and would have been a big pickup for them in the draft. I think that the trade definitely uh, helps them kind of open up the passing attack for sure. Whenever you get one of the best in the game, that's going to happen. I just personally think that trying to match that archetype of having a second threat to kind of play on the outside would have been huge for this wide receiving core. Moving on to the defense, this is I think what I mean the offense wasn't great. Let's just call it what it was. It wasn't great, but in terms of scoring, they were kind of middle of the pack. So they weren't necessarily the ones that were completely stopping the team from success. I would say that the defense definitely was a much bigger issue and a much more alarming for them than the offense was last season. 32nd in yards allowed per game, so absolute dead last in the league. 31st in passing yards allowed, 24th in rushing yards allowed, and 28th in points allowed. So clearly, the defense has some work that it needs to do. It needs to find a way to be more consistent first, and also just I think kind of load up some more talent and give themselves an opportunity to get some stops, get off the field, and get that offense back on. They did bring in Devin Kennard to start at linebacker, so and that's just the one starter that I saw that they brought in. That does not mention there was numerous guys that I saw that were brought in for depth, which is something that's always huge for a team if they can kind of get some more depth. There's unfortunately always going to be injuries in the NFL. So getting that depth, getting guys that can step in and be productive is always going to be huge. And there was quite a few guys that they brought in to kind of back up their depth charts, reinforce this team, and kind of give them more options going forward. But I think that that's enough about their 2019 and then also their offseason. So now let's talk for a second about the 6 picks that they made in this year's draft. The very first pick was Isaiah Simmons, outside linebacker out of Clemson. This kid is an absolute physical freak. He's extremely versatile. He's still developing his recognition skills a little bit, so that'll just take a little bit of time. But he definitely appears like he could be NFL ready. He's athletic enough to match up with tight ends, but he's also an explosive pass rusher and is fantastic on the QB spy. He's got great range and ball skills, and it's quoted as them calling him a sideline to sideline run defender. So he's got a ton of range. He's going to give this defense a ton of options in terms of where they play him, how they line him up, and it gives them just an all-around talent on the defensive side of the football that can look to try to lead this defense and help them from hopefully they don't wind up near the bottom of the league again. I don't know that. We're going to get into it. They made a few more picks on defense here, but I don't know that they're going to necessarily be one of the best in the league. But I definitely think the defense will be much improved next season, in large part because of Isaiah Simmons, but also not overlooking some of the moves that they made. Quite a few of those moves that they made in terms of bringing in depth were on the defensive side of the football. So I think they'll just be an all-around improved unit, in my opinion. Next up, we've got Josh Jones, offensive tackle out of Houston. He lacks the ideal length for tackle, so he could project well for a move to guard. However, the tape does suggest that he can overcome this kind of lack of length and continue to be productive regardless. He's a good pass blocker with good balance and body control. He also flashes the ability to create a push and get to the second level in the run game. He's slated to start at right tackle to start the season. I would expect for him to they're going to try to give him some leeway, I think, unless he's getting beat bad, and definitely see uh, how his game transitions, given that length issue, if it's going to be a problem for him or not. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe next year or the season after they experiment with him at guard. But for right now, I think that tackle makes a lot of sense. It kind of gives him that um, security blanket on the exterior of that right side of that offensive line, and somebody that they are pretty confident is going to be able to be a productive pass blocker for them. Next up, we've got uh, Leki Fotu, defensive tackle out of Utah. Uh, he's big enough and is able to stuff up the run on the interior, and he can mostly just clog up the middle when he plays with proper technique. Now he does occasionally give ground, which is a little bit worrisome, but as well as the fact that he's limited in the pass game and has a tendency to stall out. He does not consistently win with his hands, but he does have quite a few tools that he could look to develop over the years and um, eventually develop into a solid nose tackle. But at the moment, he is slated in as backup. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a few snaps this season to see how he performs at NFL speed. I don't necessarily know that he's going to get, barring injury, a ton of snaps. It's going to depend on how he performs. But definitely going forward, this is somebody that they're going to um, look to develop and see what he can turn into. And again, I was talking about earlier that they added depth. This is one of those places where they added depth. This is a fourth round pick. Even if he's not necessarily ready this season, they've kind of given themselves a young piece to try to build on going forward. And um, even if nothing else, at least this season you've now got a guy that you're pretty confident in his ability, at least as a backup, to step in and at least clog up the middle against the run. Next up, they went defensive tackle again, this time out of LSU. They went with Rashard Lawrence. Um, he is average size, but he's got good length and very good top end speed. He tracks the ball as well as showing flashes of being able to make a play in the backfield. Uh, he has the strength to stack offensive linemen and kind of uh, set the edge against the run. Uh, which is, I'm saying that specifically because even though he was listed as a defensive tackle, he is currently listed on the depth charts at defensive end. So I think that it kind of makes a little bit of sense. I think he's got the speed to play out there, and he'll have great size to be a defensive end. So I think that makes a lot of sense for a few reasons. Um, and I think that for this team in particular, even though he is only a third string, again, kind of giving them that kind of that depth that they're going to be looking for, and giving him a chance to develop. I think that he's got all the tools to be able to develop into a strong defensive end for them. It's just going to be a matter of how he transitions to the new position, how he takes to it, in order for them to see what they're going to have for him kind of going forward. Next up, we've got Evan Weaver, inside linebacker out of California. He's a strong tackler who tracks the ball well. He's slightly below. He's got slightly below average top end speed, but he chases with great effort. And it was specifically noted that he has the tools and mentality to become a core special teams player. So it doesn't look like he's kind of projected to have a ton of impact this season. Which, when we get later into this draft, anyway, we're talking about sixth round picks here. Um, Even if he does find a home somewhere on the depth charts at some point, it would be more likely, in my opinion. It looks like here he's listed as a four-string inside linebacker. Um, in my opinion, it's more likely, and it looks like in the opinion of the analysts as well, it's more likely for him to find a home in those special teams units, which I talk about all the time, is a very important part. It's the kind of like the third part of the team that no one ever really pays enough attention to. But if he can develop into that solid special teams player, that'll be huge to get out of a six round pick, somebody that can become a kind of a special teams kind of core player that you know that is going to be able to perform and he's going to play hard, which is really all you can ask for. Next up, early in the 7th round, in their last pick in the draft, they went with Eno Benjamin, running back out of Arizona State. He didn't have as great of a combine as was expected, but on tape he shows the ability to get into the next gear well, and he also runs hard and shows good balance even through contact, which allows him to create some more yards after contact despite not having a huge amount of power or really being those power backs that are going to kind of run people over. I would say he has the tools to become a solid receiving back, but as of right now, he has shown that he's a little prone to drops. Um, but he's got the tools, and it'll be interesting to see um, uh, uh, what kind of role he has this season, starting this season projected to be a third string running back behind Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds. I'm kind of curious to see, um, long term wise, where that's going to place him in terms of the flow of the offense. If he's going to get a few looks, if not, um, each team kind of manages their running back core differently. Like teams like the Eagles, which is, as you know, I'm an Eagles fan, so something I'm a little bit more familiar with. They kind of do it more by running back by committee. You'll see 3 or 4 different running backs in there getting looks throughout the game. That did change up a little bit this season once they kind of found a more solid running back option to be their running back one. Um, but overall, there are quite a few teams that do running back by committee, so they could be kind of more in that boat. Or there are also a few teams that you really don't see guys out of the first two. The Chargers last season were an example where it was when they were healthy, it was either Melvin Gordon. Or it was Austin Eckler. You didn't really see the third option in there very often. So I'm interested to see. I think it's going to depend a lot on what kind of progress he shows both in practice as well as the whatever looks he does get in the game. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what he's able to show and what opportunities he's able to be afforded kind of in the flow of this offense. Is there anything that we kind of went through, Matt, that you wanted to kind of touch on, bring up, point out?
I just want to reiterate my points from the last video. Never mind.
What?
I want to no. I want to reiterate my points from the last video. Um, this organization is needing in a lot of areas, and putting this draft together, I don't think brings them over that hump of being really at 500 yet. Maybe they can split it up, get yourself an 8-8 record, but I'm not seeing it with I don't think this draft really did anything exceptional. It's going to make them turn into a powerhouse. I think they have a lot of gaps still.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty decent job of starting to fill some of those gaps with at least guys that they can try to build around going forward. But to your point, I don't know that these guys are ready to make them compete this season. I could see these guys being huge pieces in a competing team 3 or 4 years from now, but that is all going to remain to be seen. It's all going to depend on how these guys make the transition to that NFL speed, and kind of seeing what that looks like for them at an NFL level. I think definitely that's a solid point. So kind of looking at the draft here, it's kind of a hard one for a few reasons. Um, One, exactly what we were just talking about. They're not. I don't think that this draft makes them ready to compete right now, and I don't think that it was really giving them the ability to get over that hump immediately. Um, you've got a few guys that are going to be ready to step in right away, so notably their first 2 picks, especially in Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones. But kind of everywhere else down the line, it was more kind of drafting for depth and drafting for potential, which still makes a ton of sense, absolutely. But I don't think that they really did anything to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. So I don't, and I'm not counting in again, notably, I'm not counting in anything else that they did in the offseason into this grade, right? So I'm not going to look at that, David Johnson trade and say they absolutely killed it, draft grade A. Like no, that I didn't count that as part of what they did in the draft. I'm only looking at the picks that they made and the selections that they made and the impact that those guys could have this season. And I think that given that information, I think I don't have I can't see myself slotting them anywhere any higher than a B to a B plus. I think that they had a good draft. I think they filled some holes. I think that they still have some more holes to fill, and I don't think that these guys are, while they are very, very solid players and they all have a ton of potential, I don't think that it gets them over that hump this season. Do you have an opinion, Matt?
No, that's basically where I'm at with this draft. So
So you think B to B plus is fair?
no, I think B's fair.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, um, did they have a good draft? Yeah, they had a good draft. They had a solid draft. Did they have like a oh my god, outstanding, one of the best drafts we've seen? I don't know that they did that either. Um, they filled their holes. They did what they needed to do to put themselves in position to succeed going forward. But it's just going to be kind of like in most cases that we've seen in these videos. It's going to all come down to how these guys make that transition to the NFL level, and that's kind of just something that you gotta wait and see. Regardless, I think that that is going to wrap us up for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Um, we do not own the clip, the highlight video that I was showing throughout the course of today's video. So if you want to check that out, uh, make sure to check that out in the description down below. Also in the description down below, um, linked is our Instagram and our Twitter. We're not particularly active on those, but we are active in our Discord, so make sure to check that out and come on over and say hi, and we'll be sure to kind of catch up with you guys and say what's up. Make sure to come back later today for Matt.
the greatest video I will ever make. The Get to talk about the greatest baseball organization on the planet. It's going to be biased. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really in depth because I really fucking like this team. And it's the reason I'm into baseball in the first place. The great New York Yankees, Bronx Bombers, the Savages in the Box, the Boys of 161st Street. I'm just talking about fucking podcasts now. But that's beside the point. We are talking about the New York Yankees. The finale is upon us for baseball, and I'm very, very happy about it.
So make sure to keep your eyes out for that for him for later today. And then tomorrow is the very last video in these series of videos that we've done. I will go take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles and their 2020 NFL draft. We both chose to end off with our favorite teams, which I think makes a lot of sense. But anyways, make sure to come and check that out tomorrow. And then if you have anything that you guys would like us to see, I mentioned yesterday that we were going to be making some videos next week, probably about the NBA and the kind of bubble that's opening back up down in Orlando. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But if there's anything else that you guys would like to see, either leave that in the comments down below or come on over to our Discord and say what's up, and we will go from there. But I think that we've kind of covered all our bases. So again, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Peace.